I really don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that 2023 has been a dumpster fire when it comes to mainstream horror. And there was a part of me that was hoping and praying that The Nun 2 could be the surprise of the year in the genre. All I really wanted is for Valak the Nun to ascend to the horror icon status that the character deserves. But no, unfortunately, one of the coolest and most interesting newer horror villains has once again been underutilized. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
I've said many times how The Conjuring 2 is my favorite entry in the Conjuring movie universe. And I think there's two very huge reasons for that. One being it's directed by James Wan, and two, it has one of the most memorable character introductions in a horror film that I can remember. To this day, everything about Valak the Nun in The Conjuring 2 still sends chills down my spine. From the design of the character to the mystique that's around it, to the iconic and creepy score that plays every single time it's on screen. So why, for the love of God, have they not been able to replicate that same success in the Nun's solo movies? The first Nun movie to me was boring and forgettable, but I was willing to give it a pass because they were still trying to figure things out. And then I get to The Nun 2, where it feels like they tried to up the ante, but everything they attempted to do just fell flat.
Whoopie do. Hey, I'm impressed.
This story was crafted, apparently, by the same person who crafted the story for Megan, which kind of explains why the entire plot of this movie doesn't unfold gradually like it should, because every single important piece of information we get in this film comes in the form of a giant exposition dump. The Nun 2 follows Sister Irene, who is forced to investigate when priests and other members of the church are being violently murdered, and she once again must come face to face with an all-powerful evil. If that synopsis sounds kind of generic, that's because it is. Now you would think that this movie would learn from the past mistakes of the first Nun movie, and try to return this character and this story to its more disturbing and ominous roots that were established in The Conjuring 2. You would think that establishing a moody atmosphere in a dark and dingy boarding school, which is a perfect backdrop for a character like this, would be priority one. Playing with the audience's expectations, establishing tension that will make the more horrific moments in the movie mean that much more.
That makes sense.
Well, I'm here to say that the creators of The Nun 2 said nope to all of that, and instead created a pretty standard demon possession movie with a MacGuffin of all things at the center of its plot. I actually miss the days of when just knowing a demon's name gives you power over them. Sure, it's a lot more simple, but it's also a lot more effective and less convoluted. Sometimes a straightforward approach to these things and not trying to overthink it goes a long way. The only straightforward thing established in this movie from a horror perspective was the jump scares, which were decent, I guess, but at the end of the day, that's all this movie really has going for it. Even the imposing and physical presence of the nun feels downplayed in this film, because you don't even see it in the form that we know for large portions of this movie.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Now, normally a less is more approach would be welcomed by me. That's the sort of thing that I ask for frequently in my horror films. But not in this case, where you show us less of the nun in favor of a generic possessed guy and a goat man. I have to be honest, there were moments in this movie where I completely forgot that I was watching a nun film. That should never happen. Valak should be a looming presence over this film, even when it's not on screen. Oh, and by the way, when they do decide to show the nun, a lot of it is done with CGI, because of course it is.
Why did these things always happen to me?
In fact, the finale of this movie would rival a Marvel project for being completely devoid of any kind of stakes and just a giant CGI fest. This movie does a good job on more than one occasion of reminding us of the cool that the Nun used to do. There are clear references to the hallway scene and to the painting scene from The Conjuring 2. But all that really made me do is wonder why I'm not watching that movie instead of this one. So if you want a weird CGI version of that iconic painting scene from The Conjuring 2, then this is the movie for you. I could make reference to how all the characters in this movie are constantly making the worst decisions, and I know that's a horror trope at this point and almost expected, but I don't care and I'm going to say it anyway. Most of the characters in this movie are unintelligent.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
I can suspend disbelief when there's other stuff going on around these dumb decisions that will keep me invested. And The Nun 2 doesn't have any of that. They also introduce a new sidekick character in this movie for Irene, who's a nun who hasn't quite found her faith yet. And there's a moment where the lead character, Irene, actually says to this side character, "Let's hope you find your faith at the right moment," or something like that. Basically screaming to the audience she's going to find her faith in the right moment, just in time to defeat Valak in the final act. It was just such a on-the-nose message in the movie, and from the very beginning, it felt like the writers weren't even trying.
Message!
Not to mention, this new girl is kind of calm for someone who didn't believe in anything prior to the film, and suddenly she's thrust into this paranormal situation with the most evil demon possible. There's just not a proper build for anything in this movie. Not enough to make what's going on even remotely believable or scary. They clearly wanted to up the gore this time around, and apparently they even did reshoots to do just that. And this is something that modern horror franchises do a lot when they're out of ideas about how to move forward. Just use blood and gore as a quick band-aid to hide all of our deficiencies.
Because it's all part of the plan.
Sure, we see the nun physically wrecking some people, but do I really care? Not really. Credit goes to James Wan, once again, for building gradually to that final confrontation in The Conjuring that gets physical. Having the nun orchestrating things behind the scenes, manipulating the whole situation, and then striking when the moment is right was infinitely more effective. When it comes right down to it, I admire what James Wan has done to build out this universe, but when he's not directly involved, and I'm talking about being a director, these movies suffer and they turn into run-of-the-mill horror projects.
Not impressed.
It's unfortunate to me that the nun of all characters can't seem to get a proper solo movie that captures the essence of what made the character so memorable to begin with. Overall, to me, The Nun 2 is a completely forgettable movie that does absolutely nothing to build up this character or the lore around it in a satisfying way. It is a truly frustrating experience when you think about what could have been. It actually does make me angry a little bit that they can't seem to get this character right. So I feel that The Nun 2 is more than deserving of an angry Rocky.
That's right, it stinks! Y'all be cool. Right on.